Having probably only just woken up after being absolutely starched by Jake Paul last December, ex-UFC welterweight champ Tyron Woodley has his sights set on another boxing opponent. YouTuber KSI was set to take on Wassabi next week, but the fight was canceled with little-known rapper Swarmz stepping in. However, it is thought Tyron Woodley actually offered to stand in. Today, we're discussing Woodley's offer to fight KSI. Stay tuned. Let's jump straight in then. What happened? Woodley has been largely under the radar since suffering a humiliating knockout loss to Jake Paul last winter, but has recently offered to save a fight card in the UK. YouTuber KSI is set to fight twice in one night at the end of August, once for ICB World Cruiserweight title, but one of his opponents, Wassabi, is pulled out thanks to a concussion suffered in training. He was quickly replaced with rapper Swarmz, but some boxing fans weren't happy with his choice of opponent, although most real boxing fans didn't care. Jake Paul had actually offered to step in to avenge the loss KSI inflicted on his big brother a few years back, which of course fits with his MO of fighting smaller people with minimal boxing experience. Paul even offered up the services of ex-UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley, who lost twice to Paul last year. It all came about after KSI criticized Paul for fighting Woodley, saying he was too old and basically discrediting Paul's win. However, Paul retorted by telling the YouTuber, "I guarantee you would never fight Tyron Woodley, and he's ready to step in and fight you at 3 weeks' notice. So if he's just some old UFC guy you're trying to discredit, why not fight him instead of some no-name opponent you're about to put in? Because you won't do it." What do you guys make of Paul's words? Is KSI dodging Woodley? So what else went down? Stay tuned to find out. Well, Wassabi is actually represented by Jake Paul and his MVP company, and it is thought that even though he was knocked out by Paul, Woodley is still in contact with the promoter. Paul revealed how he had sent a message to Tyron to see if he would be interested in fighting KSI on short notice. He actually showed the message he sent to Woodley, with the former MMA champ simply responding, yes. As soon as KSI had announced his new opponent, Swarmz, Jake Paul took to Twitter to call his fellow YouTuber out for appearing to duck Woodley in his eyes. He said, "Tyron Woodley is ready to take the fight on 3 weeks' notice, but the duck KSI wants an easy fight." I mean, this is rich coming from a man who just pulled out of a fight with Hasan Rahman because his opponent was too big more than a week before the fight. KSI then responded by explaining the idea of this fight is to get rid of ring rust. I mean, he's no pro, but boxers often have to tune up fights after a while out of the ring, so this kind of makes sense. He went on to say he has things to prove, mainly to himself, but encouraged people to not watch if they didn't want to, which is nice of him. He then explained that there are other great fights on the card and that he will happily take a small L now for a big W later. Next up, we're discussing a cameo TV role for Woodley. Stay with us. Cobra Kai has been super successful since it began back in 2018, and with the addition of 2 former MMA opponents to the cast for the upcoming season 5, it's surely only going to get better. A recent trailer for the upcoming 5th season shows ex-UFC champ Tyron Woodley, as well as his 2-time title challenger Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, both kitted out in a back karate gi. Of course, Thompson is actually a karate specialist and has one of the most distinctive styles in the whole UFC. Wonderboy and Woodley were involved in an epic draw back in 2016 before Woodley took a majority decision win in the pair's following fight a few months later, and they're not the only MMA athletes on the Cobra Kai roster this season, as UFC middleweight Eric Anders will also be making an appearance. Thompson reportedly holds the show in very high regard and even told Ariel Helwani that it was inevitable he would appear on Cobra Kai eventually. And the 2 former welterweight foes coming together to squash their beef is a refreshing change in the macho world of MMA. It is thought the pair have been recruited in by Terry Silver to help with his planned expansion after the events of Season 4. Whatever happens with the storyline, it will be great to see both Woodley and Wonderboy when Season 5 drops. Who is your favorite character on the show? Another change of opponent for KSI now. Stick around. As we mentioned above, KSI is set to fight twice in one night at the end of this month, as long as he doesn't get knocked out in the first fight, am I right? However, he has had to replace another of the fighters he was set to take on after it was revealed Ivan Nikolov has links to far-right supremacist groups. Many people would have liked to have seen KSI give him a beat down for this exact reason, but the YouTuber has decided that giving him no publicity at all would be a much bigger blow. KSI will take on Swarmz, who himself himself replaced injured fighter Alex Wassabi and also Luis Alcaraz Pineda, who has been drafted in to replace the vulgar Bulgarian. Pineda comes into the fight with less losses than Nikolov and is also younger than him. KSI said, "I know a lot of people were having a go at me because the other guy was in his 40s. However, Nikolov tried to defend himself, saying, "I have seen recent news regarding a tattoo referring to white power. This has absolutely no relevance to an outdated opinion and simply refers to my own belief in my strength and power as an athlete." Yeah, right. Nikolov has plenty of other questionable tattoos, so he might need to try harder than that to pull a wool over people's eyes. He went on to say he understands how it comes across, but again tried to claim it represents literal power. Please. Jake Paul has announced his new fight date now. Stay tuned. Paul recently pulled out of what would have been seen as a legitimate boxing fight because his opponent hadn't met one of the many strings that comes attached with fighting him. Paul canceled the bout after Hasan Rahman was more than 10 pounds over the weight limit for the fight, but there was still more than a week to go before the fight. Of course, most boxers shed this amount easily in the week before a fight, so it's more than likely Paul just didn't fancy facing a real boxer. However, he continues with the charade as he has this week suggested he will return to the ring this October. He even revealed that he has an opponent in mind who he suggests will be a professional boxer. On Saturday, August 20, he tweeted, "My next opponent will be a pro boxer, and of course he will have a winning record just like Timmy and Rahman did before they pulled out." Of course, Tommy Fury did not pull out. He wasn't allowed a visa to enter the USA, but there was absolutely nothing stopping Paul from traveling to the UK to fight him, and we've just explained what happened with Rahman, so don't be fooled by this man and the misinformation he spreads. Paul is still yet to face a real boxer after handpicking all 5 of his opponents to date, none of whom have any pro boxing experience. Who do you think he fights next? And finally, Paul has trolled Kamaru Usman after his defeat this weekend. Somewhat embarrassingly for a man who has recently pulled out of a fight, Jake Paul has trolled former UFC welterweight champ Kamaru Usman after his head kick KO at the hands of Leon Edwards this weekend. The YouTuber, who for some reason seems to think he is a professional boxer despite never facing a professional boxer, mocked Usman shortly after losing his title. The Nigerian Nightmare was knocked out in the final round of a fight he was winning on all 3 judges' scorecards, but Paul decided to jump straight on it and kick Usman while he was down. The pair have traded words in the past, but Paul should have more respect, especially considering the fact that Usman is a legitimate fighter and he clearly isn't. The troll posted a video of Usman out cold with a dummy in his mouth, alongside a caption which read, "I love nap time." Usman has recently claimed Paul isn't worth fighting as it's too much of a risk, but this could just change his mind. And there's plenty of people who would love to see Usman shut Jake Paul up. As usual, thanks for stopping by today, and remember to tune in again next time when we will be discussing all sorts of other cool bits and pieces. And why not do us a favor by liking and sharing today's video. Bye guys.